Hey, hi, hello, I am Super Dude, and welcome to the largest undertaking I've done so far for this channel. If you've seen my past work, then you know I'm a fan of animation, and romance anime is my weapon of choice when it comes to seeing great art in this medium because, unlike punch anime, animators kinda have to be clever with how they flex their animation muscles with romance. If you're watching Demon Slayer or whatever else is hot right now, you can guess where the big moments of the show are gonna be. It's the fights. These moments in any anime where the budget focuses into the singular moment of fluid motion or electrifying art where everything comes together to show the peak of what this animation studio can do is collectively called sakuga in the anime world. And by the way, if any lingo comes up over this video, you're gonna hear that pop over and over, so just letting you know now, if you hear a pop, there's lingo and I'm explaining it on screen. Sakuga is the action-packed moments, the hype moments, the sort of stuff you'd find on YouTube removed from its context because it just looks good. Though good sakuga should be a delight to its viewer, the fact that the sakuga is found in a fight is never a surprise. For a show like Kaguya-sama Love is War, a grounded if cartoonishly exaggerated tale of two tsunderes falling in love, where does A1 flex their animation chops? A rotoscope chica dancing on ones, apparently. Or how about multiple music videos of characters rapping their feelings out to each other? I love how creative the grounded setting of romance forces animators to be when creating art, and also, of course, the fact that romance doesn't work without great writing to back it up. Another similar genre that also puts a strong focus on writing and creative animation with electrifying sakuga and excellent characters is music anime. Admittedly, music is worthlessly vague when trying to describe a genre of animation, but even when speaking on a subject this broad, music anime often coaxes great art out of their animators, all thanks to the potential of music. Music as an art form is uniquely primed to make us feel things, or it can be a community effort or cultural practice that brings people together in a shared moment of performance and experience. Music encourages community, inspires and provokes feelings in people, and shows the talent and proficiency of the artist at their craft. Animation helps demonstrate these ideas visually, stretching past our reality to convey the emotions of a scene, realism be damned, or showing the power of being together in this moment. Music excites the imagination, and given animation's imaginative strengths, the two media are perfect complements. Though it's no wonder music anime begs for strong visuals and beautiful performances from their characters. This is another genre that lends itself to great art, and the writing isn't half bad either. Like punch anime, we all know what the sakuga moment is going to be in a music anime, the performances, obviously, but the representation of these performances are truly a mystery before we get there. They could just show people playing on stage, but again, animation was made to escape reality. They could show a music video, show them escaping beyond the stage, show them fighting for their lives, experiencing a drug trip, whatever this is, you name it. Even the very technical representation of human movement is a stellar showing of animation chops, even if visually grounded. So yeah, music anime is great. That's my pitch. So where do you want to start? We have a girl band anime, or girls in a symphonic band, or a girl band anime, or hey, this is a jazz club. That seems pretty cool. Or another girl band? I'm starting to notice a theme here. Most anime choose a curious lens through which to animate music. Not just any band, not just any group of kids, but girls. Usually in a rock band, though idols are also a thing. Though music anime is a uselessly broad term, girls in a band anime really is a trend all its own, and it's been sweeping the charts over the past few years with the likes of Bocchi the Rock, Sound Euphonium, Girls Band Cry, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, and certainly more that I've missed. Some of you may be thinking, why girls? And that's a great question. We're bound to get a couple of excellently produced music anime with an ensemble female cast per year, and that's a bit of a bizarre thing, no? You don't see boy band anime with nearly the same frequency. Hell, you may not even see a boy in these anime at all. And as with all things, this trend is a consequence of history, with the culture-defining anime of yesteryear setting the stage for where we find ourselves today. So let's talk about it. Let's explore some notable stars of the girl band anime niche in an attempt to see what these shows do that's special, some of their tropes and sub-creature comforts, and see how those trends are remixed in the modern day. But first, let's put up some guardrails. Talking about every notable show at the intersection of music and women would take me years, so let's be more specific. Given my enjoyment of rock music, we will focus on more rock groups than idols or symphonic orchestras. Sorry Euphonium, sorry Love Live. There is too little time for too many great shows, even within this tighter band of just rock outfits, so I will try and shout out other notable projects as we go, but I won't and can't cover everything in this video. As cool as it would be to make a comprehensive video on every show in a genre or franchise, I'm not financially stable enough to spend most of my year doing that, so here we are. If you would like to help with my financial stability, please consider supporting my Patreon. If there's a show I left out that you would like to bring to people's attention, please let me know in the comments so I can compile a list of further readings, for myself and for you guys. with all that out of the way, this is Girl Bandame, and I hope you enjoy. The origins of girl band anime can be traced back to one show in particular, a well-known property that most people have at least heard of, if not seen. Girl bands didn't start here, but this show would go on to define what it means to be in a girl band anime and set the tropes into place. And that show, of course, is K-On! K-On! Is a slice-of-life comedy girl band anime written by Kakafly and animated by Kyoto Animation. K-On! Is the story of 4 girls, and much later a 5th, joining the light music club at their local high school in an attempt to learn how to play music, and have an excuse to goof off. Mostly goof off. Our protagonist is Yui Hirasawa, a very, very spacey, fun-loving girl who joins the light music club purely to avoid being a NEET. And that's it. That's the show. Not a lot to analyze from episode 1, huh? This show is an interesting beast. K-On! Came out in a time when anime girls were being pushed to the limits of cuteness in the pursuit of moe, or that feeling you get when you see something cute and you're like, I must protect this thing with my life. Feelings of affection, adoration, excitement, or devotion, as Wikipedia puts it. Moe is rarely used outside of the Japanese context, but I would say it's a similar feeling you have for a puppy. Except that's not quite right, a puppy's a living thing. Okay, how about pee-pee? Years ago, this commercial appeared on YouTube, and if I'm being honest, I've never been able to skip it. I've watched it in full every time it appears. It's this strange combination of cuteness and oddness that really draws me in, like an alien copying off our cute homework, and honestly, it works for me. It reminds me of The Creature. It's an adorable little fiend, and I want to feed it the peanuts it deserves. I shared this with everyone I knew, and now I have friends who genuinely own a pee-pee. I don't own one though. I'm not mad about it. I swear to God, I'm not. Sorry, I blacked out. What were we talking about? Oh, pee-pee! Moe is a feeling approaching the love or desire to protect you would have for a child or pet. But it's not for, like, a real living thing. Usually the object of moe is Japanese in origin, and around the late aughts to 2010s, Japan was in a moe arms race to make creatures maximally designed for cuteness, and K-On! Was no exception. If you want to learn more about this, Lextorius' deep dive in anime waifus explains the lead up to this moment and its aftermath, using K-On! As his flagship example for the moe boom. Why K-On!, you ask? Because it sold $1 billion. I won't rehash his points, but it was the best-selling anime in history at the time, and had an insane cultural impact here, there, everywhere. Again, watch Lex if you want to see just what K-On!'s success was. It was astronomical. With that in mind, what is it about K-On! That made it one of the best anime to ever exist? The flagship franchise of the moe boom? For an answer to that, look no further than the show's opener. We see the girls playing their instruments. Yui says, no, no, no. How adorable. We get an introduction to each of the girls displaying their particular personalities, although I don't understand how not being in your uniform is particularly indicative of this person's personality. And then we end the OP with more performing, interspersed with just some classic goofing off. This is a 90-second demonstration of all K-On! Is offering you. Cute girls doing cute things, and that's about it. These characters feel lab-grown for the explicit purpose of making you aw at them. And while there are definitely shows in the moe boom that push the characters to greater extremes, these girls are definitely a step along that path. So what is it about these characters that gives them that moe flavor? I've already discussed Yui a bit. Space princess without a lot of drive, but she enjoys playing the guitar once she joins the band, and becomes very good, very fast, surprising the more serious members of the club. Outside of that, Yui is a real girl failure, terrible at most things, but bumbles and giggles her way through life. And I do mean bumbling and giggling. She is very often just making noises. Though she only has one friend before joining the club, she finds a kindred spirit in Ritsu Tainaka, the tomboy drummer who originally joined the light music club with Mio in episode 1 when they noticed it had no members. But outside of using Ritsu as a bridge to talk about Mio, she doesn't really matter to my overall point, so I unfortunately won't be talking about her past this. I am sorry. I have a lot of thoughts about Mio, and that's because the show spends a lot of time showing us her perspective on the band. If K-On! Could be said to have a second main character, it would have to be Mio. She is constantly pestering the others to practice and take things seriously, but is more emotionally charged than the rest of the cast, being easier to frighten, embarrass, or upset than her other bandmates, which often frustrates her attempts to get the others on task. Also, she's the band's bassist, and left-handed one at that, so she's basically me. Seeing her complain about no left-handed bassist in the store was the most seen I've been in any music anime. And for that, I have no notes. She's perfect. Moving on. Finally, we have Tsumugi Kotobuki, the keyboardist. There's weirdly a lot to say about Tsumugi because there is more information about her background than any other girl in the band. Mugi comes from money. and as such is used to a lavish lifestyle, but tries to avoid using any of that wealth and influence now that she's in high school. What this means to the plot is that Mugi could solve any financial issue that the group faces with ease, but she tries not to, because she wants to live her life as a normal girl. Her background is also a source of humor throughout the show, as Mugi, her family, and her friends all have a different vision of what normal means, leading to rich people hijinks and loads of embarrassment for Mugi. Though the setup feels brimming with potential, it's never capitalized on, opting for a simple approach to Mugi's character. She doesn't understand what normal is, so she's down for everything and reacts to almost all events in the show with blind enthusiasm. Base Princess number 2 in our cast. She does have one other major personality trait, but let's put a pin in that for now. These 4 make up K-on's band, Afternoon Tea Time, which isn't officially named until the end of episode 11 of the first season. Yeah, K-on is a great many things, but fast isn't one of them. The plot of each episode exists purely as a vehicle to get these girls in wacky situations where they can act out their personality quirks with each other, which is fine, I suppose. K-on is a slice of life, so it's not like a plot is strictly necessary. Most episode conflicts revolve around either a deadline or Mio wanting them to practice. The girls instead goof off. Mio resists this urge and try to get the girls on task. The other girls find some way, accidental or otherwise, to thwart Mio thanks to her weak constitution. The task is eventually achieved, though it's usually not because the girls successfully focused or anything, but because someone more responsible was looking out for them. They were forced by the one adult in the show to get on task, or they finally listen to Mio and do what she asks after 20 minutes of concentrated goofage. We are here for antics and shenanigans, and K-on provides that. No more and no less. I may sound frustrated talking about this plot, and if I'm being honest, there were moments in the back half of Season 1 where I was genuinely frustrated with the pacing of this show. But that's not K-on's fault. That's my fault. They make it perfectly clear that the show is substanceless junk food, sugary and sweet to the core. And while too much of the stuff will definitely rot your teeth and brain, I'm sure we can all appreciate a show that exists purely to massage those wrinkles out and return us to our lizard impulses. I made a similar argument recently for why Skyrim remains popular. This show is unchallenging and exists to be blissful entertainment, and it never suggests it's anything more than that. To quote Sun Won when talking about a certain Ghibli film, "It's pure fluff, it's cotton candy." But I like cotton candy. Regardless, the show did create a subgenre, so this uncritical cotton candy anime still birthed a lot of tropes, which is why we're here, trying to figure out what K-on established for the girl anime of the future. While rock bands are certainly a core theme of the show, it's not really a focus of the storytelling. Again, we're here to see these girls being cute, not storm the Budokan, though that is their supposed goal. One thing I found really enjoyable here that we really won't see again in the further shows is how much Afternoon Tea Time sucks. These are high school girls learning how to play in a band for the first time, and Yui can't play anything at the start, so they're all prone to making mistakes, which I found refreshing. Their first performance for Yui in episode 1 is genuine high school style flubbing, and their first public showing in episode 6 is mired by Yui's shredded vocal cords, ruining any sense of harmony in the vocals. No other band on this list will go as low in skill level as Afternoon Tea Time, and that is not an insult. Despite humble beginnings, they steadily improve as the show goes on, and eventually draw a 5th member to the show in Azusa, a far more experienced guitarist who nonetheless takes rhythm guitar behind Yui due to low self-esteem. Azusa is another serious musician along with Mio, but also suffers from a lack of executive function, so she unfortunately gets in the way more than she helps, and really just exists to be a new reason to re-explore old scenarios. Or does she? Azusa's introductory episodes demonstrate the heart of K-on's message. These girls may be extremely unfocused, take none of this seriously, and are kind of terrible performers in practice, but they're pretty good on stage together. And the reason for this is because of their collective friendship. Their love of being together makes the music great. Being in a band isn't about everybody being perfect musicians. They have to like being around each other if they want to gel well on stage and put on a good show. In short, being friends and having fun are the most important part of being in a band. And that's a great message for anyone who's just starting out in music. Remember, especially when you're trying something new, this new experience is supposed to be fun. Azusa initially bounces off of the girls because she takes music too seriously, and only realizes after attempting to start her own group that it is precisely that fun factor that drew her to Afternoon Tea Time in the first place. So she returns to the group, and though she remains frustrated by their slacking off, she understands that in any relationship, there's a give and a take, and she learns to love the playtime in her own way. Let's revisit Mio for a second, because she has an interesting role in K-on narratively. Though this show is pretty plot agnostic, that doesn't mean it's without its stakes, and Mio is a wellspring of dramatic potential. If there is drama in an episode, it's either coming from her or involves her in some way, and given her serious nature, she tends to be the focus when the show takes a turn for the serious. Her and Azusa both. This was my meaning when I said Mia could be our second main character earlier. Many scenes are presented from her perspective, and we're given more insight into her feelings on the band's supposed failures than the other girls. Also, to be completely transparent, if all of these girls were designed in a lab to be cute, then one of them was bound to work on me, and that was Mio. From her crybaby nature to her left-handedness, and the fact that we play the same instrument, I rooted for her more than anyone else, which may be another reason why I was frustrated in the back half of Season 1. Just give this girl a W, please! Also, though you can tell this is the oldest show on the list, the animation is still really solid. There aren't any standout Sakuga moments that I can recall, the show is just really well animated all around. But I must confess that I didn't actually finish the show. Given its exceptional success, K-On! Went on to have a 2-core second season, movies, multiple extras, the whole shebang. But if I'm being honest, I couldn't bring myself to watch this past the first season. To explain my reasoning, I will present on screen the description for K-On!'s second season, K-On! With 2 exclamation points, from myanimelist.net. Pause if you'd like to read, because it's a little long, but paraphrasing for time, this is the pitch for what I assume is the first arc of the second season, and it literally tells you the conflict's resolution in the synopsis! Not even a true resolution either, they just decide it's not worth worrying about and go back to goofing off. This is extremely on brand for the girls, but it's more of the same from them, and I'm not a fan of pure slice of life anyway, so I think I've seen my fill. K-On! Knew exactly what it was going for with its art and writing, and succeeded in its goal to such a monumental degree that its success birthed a new subgenre of cute girls playing rock. Though it isn't for me, I have to give it credit for what it is and the future it created, and for that, I thank K-On! For its service. Godspeed, you silly girls. After K-On!, many others would attempt to capitalize on this moment and produce similar girl bandames in the hopes of taking their own piece of the pie. Some of the notables from this time were Angel Beats, a far more dramatic and high-concept version of the girl band anime, and I unfortunately got them script due to time, as well as the later Bang Dream, a manga that was adapted into a multimedia rhythm game with anime advertising the game's newest bands. It's important to note that while none of these shows would reach the prominence of afternoon tea time, girl band anime never went away in the large gulf of time between K-On! And the next show on my list, so understand that I'm paving over a lot of history and innovation here, and there are some great shows to be found in this time frame. Feel free to shout out your favorites in the comments. Just because they aren't here doesn't mean they aren't worth your time. But that begs the question, if there are a lot of great diamonds in that rough, why am I fast forwarding 13 years to 2022? K-On! Was a flash in the pan, whose extreme success immediately birthed a new subgenre of music anime. In 2022, an anime of the same subgenre reignited people's excitement for this sort of show, took the world by storm, and now we are seeing its effects with multiple girl band anime coming in hot as of writing. If K-On! Was the birth, this was the second coming. Enter Bocchi the Rock! Bocchi the Rock is a comedy girl band anime written by Aki Himaji and animated by Cloverworks. Bocchi the Rock is immediately very distinct from K-On! In execution. While ostensibly also a show about cute girls doing cute things with a rock band as its foundation, Bocchi has stronger themes, higher stakes, better realized characters, and nuanced commentaries about society, mental illness, and music sprinkled in that makes it a much more interesting show to chew on by comparison. I've said it many times before, K-On! Is great, but it's singularly focused on its competency. Bocchi the Rock is way more than just funny, which is the reason why I've rewatched the show 3 times in the 2 years since its release. So, let's get into it. What is Bocchi the Rock, and why is it the second coming of the girl band anime? Bocchi's real name is Hitori Goto, an extremely introverted girl who was completely unable to talk to anyone outside of her family for most of her life. Goto can communicate. As fate would have it, she arrives home from school one day to see an interview with a boy band where one of the members professes to not having friends in school, which resonates with Hitori. He says, "A band is a place where even introverts can shine," and Hitori makes the connection. She immediately decides to learn the guitar in an attempt to shine as well. Then, for the next 3 years, nothing happens.
Yeah, we're skipping ahead because nothing happened between then and now.
Now a first-year high schooler, she's excellent at guitar with a sizable online following under the moniker Guitar Hero, but is no further in the social department than before. Struck with inspiration, she decides to take her guitar to school in an effort to be noticed. And while it doesn't work exactly how she planned, she runs into Nijika, who pulls her into her band with Ryo, and Hitori's life is never the same. Bocchi, nicknamed after Hitori Bocchi, the Japanese phrase for all alone, is emotionally turbulent and extremely unregulated, with a hyperactive imagination that sends her into delusions, both of grandeur and extreme hostility. She is a textbook prey animal, going with whatever people want, not out of enthusiasm, but a deep-rooted desire to fit in. Her actual thoughts aren't much better, being prone to fits of exceptional negativity and borderline fatalism. The only subject that she doesn't fold on immediately is music, which we'll get back to later. She reminds me of Bernadetta from Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I am the perfect mark for this character. Typically, cute girls don't really work on me, but people who beg for protection, I take that path every time. Do me a favor and don't think about what that says about me. Hitori meets Nijika and Ryo, the most perfect character in the world for which there is no equal, and promptly discovers that all of her skills in the isolated setting of her closet do jack in a band setting. As previously discussed with K-On!, part of the magic of band performance is seeing how members bounce off of each other and complement the others, a skill which Hitori has both never practiced and is predisposed to being the worst at. Still, the others accept her all the same. They encourage her and are willing to give Hitori room to grow despite her terrible first performance as a member of the group. With this, the plot is established. Hitori aims to improve socially so she can be a better member of the band and actually bring her Guitar Hero skills to bear for her new friends, as well as, it already being her life goal so far. Feels good to be back to a show with a story, even if it's a slight one. I would be remiss not to point out this show's animation. The animation is a major tool in this show's comedy belt. Mixed media is used, multiple references to other projects and titles. They get really clever with their gags, going out of their way to do the unexpected, which, is one of the pillars of comedy. The music of the show is great, and the story is what I'm about to spend the next minutes talking about, but the real draw for Bocchi the Rock is the animation. So know that going in. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's the thing that you're here for. It's a really stylistic show, and it begs to be looked at. The jokes it conveys through animation are wild. Now let's move on to the rest of the group, starting with my best friend Ryo. Ryo Yamada is the soft-spoken bassist of the group, and the most musically gifted besides Hitori. She keeps to herself, maintaining the vibe of moody, aloof musician. Despite her edge, she is passionate about music, having a gear obsession, which is a known problem for guitarists, as well as loads of knowledge about Japan's music scene. She joins this group on the grounds that they never lose their unique edge after her previous band sold out chasing popularity. She and Hitori have a lot in common, both being the introverts to Nijika and the fourth's extrovert, but unlike Hitori, Ryo actually enjoys her solitude. Besides that, they're both passionate about music and are quick to share their very particular opinions. Both are soft-spoken, both react poorly to others' happiness, which the show calls youth complex, as well as being the two band members who actually write the music. Also, since I must bring up autism at least once per anime video, Ryo shows many signs of being autistic. Soft-spoken with a very even delivery, socially deviant or at least weird, very knowledgeable on her particular topic of interest, and very androgynous, which, yes, can be a signifier for autism, don't you know? Ryo actively enjoys the aspects of herself which makes her odd, and takes joy in people calling her weird, so she's a uniquely positive form of ND representation, quietly proud of the things that make her different. Though this is definitely a subtle aspect of an already subtle character, so it's just there if you appreciate it, easy to overlook otherwise. Skipping Nijika, let's move to our fourth I mentioned earlier, who joins the band a bit later, Ikuyo Kita. Kita is a major foil to Hitori, being extremely outgoing and extroverted, thinking the best of everyone around her and seeing the silver lining of every bad situation. She makes friends easily, is a naturally charismatic force, and often picks up tasks Hitori suffers through with ease. Hitori is deeply envious of Kita's abilities, and often worries about being replaced by her, a delusion that comes up multiple times across the show. Though, envy isn't a great word for it, it's more like idolization of Kita's abilities paired with Hitori's massive insecurities turn that idolatry into fear for her own social standing. If there's anything the anxiety brain is good at, it's turning lemonade back into lemons. But Kita has her own troubles. Since Kita is the least knowledgeable on anything music-related, Hitori tutors Kita on guitar in the background, meaning Kita has seen what Hitori is capable of in a personal environment. Put another way, she's seen Guitar Hero, and she recognizes the extreme gulf between herself and Hitori. Kita is aware of her place on the musical hierarchy, which pushes her to relentlessly practice in order to deserve her place beside Hitori. Kita had to struggle a lot to be in a position to save her by the final episode, but still isn't willing to accept her own abilities, suggesting that Kita may also suffer from low self-esteem. These two are brilliant foils, great at what the other lacks and trying to uplift each other, musically and socially in the process. Also, as a quick aside, Kita does have a crush on Ryo, but we're pinning that for later. With all that said about Kita, it would be an easy mistake to suggest Nijika is basically the same character, which appears true at a glance. Both very positive, both encouraging, the bright spots to the other two's darkness, but Nijika is a pretty complex character herself, and we rarely get to see that because for most of the show's run, Nijika is deliberately kept a mystery to us. The full extent of her character, for this season anyway, is revealed in episode 8, which we're building towards, trust me. Ikita is the social foil to Hitori, Nijika is the outlook foil. She tries to push everyone in the band to improve and push through their tough positions. She's more reasonable than Kita, willing to actually admit when things aren't going their way, but still encourages the others to keep their chins up. And of all the girls in the band, she is trying the hardest to maintain Hitori's mood and spirits. Really, she's trying the hardest in general, as this whole operation was her idea. She brought Ryo back to music after she gave up on it, she brought Kita into the band before she ran off, and found Hitori as a last-minute replacement. She is constantly managing the moods of her team, and admirably filling the role of team mom, which makes it hard to see what she's really thinking. All of this information is slowly revealed over the initial 7 episodes, showing how all of this was Nijika's idea, and she's really busting her ass for this band to work. Why, you may ask? All to be revealed in episode 8. These 4 make up Kessoku Band, a Japanese pun for zip tie. They're a band, Kessoku Band, or Zip Band. Do you get it? It's a deliberately dumb name, but Ryo seems to love it, so it's the one they're going with. Unlike K-On! Or the future shows to come, you'll notice all the characters for Bocchi the Rock are described through the context of Hitori, and that's because she really is this show's main character. Everything about the writing revolves around Hitori specifically. This is her story, and all of her bandmates were written to highlight aspects of her character. Ryo is a positive form of social outcast to Hitori's very negative one. Kita excels socially where Hitori clearly does not, and Nijika is affirming, kind, and positive where Hitori is never positive. Although she does try to be, the closest thing Hitori has to a genuine role model. Each of these characters has something Hitori needs: acceptance, social acumen, and a more positive outlook. And through playing with them, she will learn from them. And perhaps they can learn something from her in turn? Bocchi the Rock's laser focus on its subject is what allows the show to really take its time exploring its themes from multiple angles, and I think is one of the major strengths of the show compared to the others on this list. After the teams fully assembled in episode 3, every episode's plot is building towards their first concert at the Starry Livehouse. There are performances in episodes 1, 5, and 6 before the big one, and each of these is done in an interesting way. The first episode's performance is no Sakuga, it's a joke to set up just how bad Bocchi is at the start. Episodes 5 and 6 are real performances, but they're intentionally undercut. Let's take a moment to talk about Hitori's social anxiety. One of the most beloved aspects of this show is how realistically it depicts Hitori's illnesses, which I know is hard to believe from looking at it. Like I said before, animation is meant to exaggerate reality, and Bocchi really is. But what makes this portrayal realistic isn't the depiction, although this certainly gets at what it feels like, more so the recovery, because while she is improving all the time, she isn't perfect. She barely ekes her way through social situations and is exhausted afterwards. She will make great progress and be congratulated by herself and her friends, only for some setback to reset her progress days, sometimes minutes later. She constantly congratulates herself on the small steps she's made, only to be pushed further in panic at this new threshold. Surely I've done enough for today. I've improved enough. I don't think I need to keep going. Let's stop here. I want to stop. While Hitori toils endlessly to improve her social skills, her guitar playing is a different story. The only time we hear her true feelings on anything is when she talks about music, and her playing in Kessoku Band is what drove her to pursue this growth in the first place. If there's anything that Hitori cares about, it's this. These performances are where we can see her growth as a person, unrestrained from the comedic trappings of the genre. Through Kessoku Band, Hitori is attempting to surpass her previous limitations, and is at war with herself in order to do so. These concerts are battles, and she is actively talking to herself in order to win the fight. No other show on this list does this. Bocchi the Rock's performances are moments of story progression for their characters, and that is part of the magic of Bocchi the Rock. But this does have a cooling effect on the music itself. This is the trade-off of this decision. The story is stronger, but the music and art is kind of on the back burner. It'll be some time still before we see the music and animation really get the shine, and it is these narrative performances that allow that later scene to shine brighter by contrast. The final character worth mentioning is Kikuri Hiroi, a random drunkard bassist who stumbled into Hitori when she was stressing over her ticket quota. Hiroi is one of the few adult characters in the show, alongside Nijika's older sister and manager of Starry, and I guess Bocchi's parents, and while the manager will matter a lot more in later seasons, for now, Hiroi is the greater presence in the plot. Hiroi is a dark mirror to Hitori, visually similar to her, and also suffering from social anxiety, which she solves with alcohol. Similar to Hitori, she is also emotionally unregulated. Though usually a happy, oblivious drunk, she will sometimes have moments of clarity if music comes up, or if she's sober. Hiroi has a sort of sage wisdom that she taps into when it comes to music, and often acts as a mentor to Hitori in this department. This is a double-edged sword though, because Hiroi is chemically dependent and offers that up as advice as well. She is an excellent musician, but she hasn't progressed socially in a healthy way, and is suffering in ways that Hitori needs to be wary of on her own path towards improving herself. Hitori is super interesting because of this dichotomy. She's a drunk who shouldn't be taken at her word, but is genuinely very helpful to Hitori almost every time she speaks, which gestures towards the great thing about Bocchi the Rock that made fans love it so much. For a comedy girl bandime, it has a lot of extra complexity hidden in plain sight. None of it is crucial to your understanding of the show. It is a comedy. If you're just here for the jokes, the animation, or the standard cute girls doing cute things, then you're gonna have a good time. But there's a lot more going on under the hood if you're willing to look. A nuanced understanding of alcohol dependency. It makes you a burden, sure, but you're still human through all that. No less valuable than anyone else. Hiroi is super helpful to Hitori, but look into her eyes and you can see the way they almost look like pits, a sunken appearance to her pupils. She's in pain, and it's plainly visible on her face. Ryu's complaints about a dying music industry, throwaway depictions of the work life of Japanese salarymen and how it grinds them to dust. Later in the manga, there's this constant undercurrent of how much Hitori's hatred of school will be ruinous for her upward mobility if she can't make this guitar thing work out, becoming a NEET and being a forever burden on her family. For a more positive subtlety, Hitori's mom knows just how to return her from her delusions, and does so with a smile. Her family understands how difficult she can be, but they work around her condition and love her, despite those difficulties. Skills are messy. They're slow to build, mistakes come easy, and it's only through time, repetition, and practice that we improve. Add on to that anxiety, depression, delusional thinking, as well as a hyperactive defense mechanism where she immediately makes 3 or 4 excuses to not do the hard thing, and all that makes digging herself out of this hole that much harder. But she's trying, and her loved ones are encouraging. And while all of this is definitely social anxiety wish fulfillment, it's more honest to the process of improving than, say, Komi can't communicate. Everyone can see Bocchi is trying really hard, and they appreciate the effort, which is nice. Support systems. They do wonders for one's recovery. These heavier themes, both positive and negative, are there if you want to see it. And that's an important reason why I have returned to this show. I think I've teased you long enough. The tryouts and street gig in episodes 5 and 6 respectively point towards the band's first real performance in episode 8, with Hitori solo teasing their newest track to the street crowd and to us. Episode 7 is mostly a gag episode, but there are hints in the background of difficult times ahead. A typhoon is coming for the prefecture. And despite their prayers, it would hit the venue. Most people couldn't make it. Hitori thinks to herself, I hate when I'm right. A sobering view of what it's like to live with anxiety, your brain taking credit for all the bad in the world and sweeping the good under the rug. Morale is low, and Nijika tries her best to keep the energy high, but it's hard. Remember, they're too small to be a headliner, so Keisuke Band isn't even the group most people are there to see. Put yourself in the headspace of the crowd. They fought through a raging storm to get to Story and see this show despite the weather. Moods are down from the typhoon, the difficulty of getting to the venue, and the low audience count. Hard to build hype when the crowd's barely crossing double digits. This is one of the most hostile crowds imaginable, and Keisuke Band is opening to them as their first performance. The only people to show for Keisuke Band specifically are the 2 fans Hitori made at her street concert and Hiroi. The rest couldn't care less. Ryo is getting cold feet, Bocchi is doing Bocchi things, and they overhear the crowd hate on them before they can even walk on stage. Despite it all, Nijika tries her best, but she's faltering. Under all of this pressure, their performance is bad. Interestingly bad, too. When Afternoon Tea Time had issues, they were jokes, like Yui's voice being so hoarse she couldn't harmonize for squat, but this is not a joke. This is the same song we heard in episode 5, but everything's wrong. Everything's out of sync, and Hitori notes it immediately. The pressure is getting to them. And all that feeds back into the crowd, who already didn't care and have now had their suspicions confirmed after a lackluster first performance. Kita's energy is gone, and Nijika, finally, is cracking. They're going down in flames. But Hitori refuses. In an overwhelming display of her guitar skills that would have been impossible in the months before this, Hitori puts herself out there, with no one to assist her, nowhere to hide. A wordless display of her progress, as she cuts through the crowd and reignites the fire in her bandmates, surprising everyone except Hiroi. And with that, everyone comes rushing in, as a wall of sound introduces the much faster, emotional, energetic energy of Keisuke Band's newest single, That Band. There is no internal monologue for this song. Hitori's struggle to save her friends, to be their guitar hero, was done wordlessly. It is just the raw performance, her bandmates surprised by her strength in this moment, and the crowd in awe of their fiery display. Unlike the rest of the songs in the series, with a small exception to the intro to episode 12, that band is allowed to be, with no dialogue to distract you. And it is all the stronger as the trappings of the story performances so far fall away and allow the culmination of this performance, this arc, to really land. Through a selfless act of confidence, she saved her friends and turned the show around to everyone's surprise. And Nijika finally realized something about the girl she found on that swing set that day. After a long night of celebrating their victories, Nijika asks Hitori if she is Guitar Hero, and reveals her reasons for starting this band. Nijika's mother died when she was young, and with her father out of the picture, her sister, Seika, was her only family. Seika was in a band when Nijika was younger, and Nijika loved the concert setting more than anything. So, Seika gave it up, and opened a club so Nijika could always be around music. In Nijika's words, Seika is a soon dere, so she has a very hard time showing how she feels earnestly. So, this is the greatest showing of love that she could offer her little sister. And Nijika knows that. So, she wants to make a band so great that people are drawn to Starry as a demonstration of her love for her sister, the gift she gave her, and the life Seika gave up for her sake. Nijika delivers all this information calmly, with a blank smile that betrays no feelings of the matter. Nijika's default expression throughout the show has been one of kind cheerfulness, and she does the same in this moment, but now we see why she is so capable of facing adversity with that smile. She has suffered more than any of the other girls, and wants to make this band a success to thank those she loves. Nijika is the heart of the band, and Hitori's selfish motivations melt away in the face of her selflessness. Nijika considers Hitori her hero, and Hitori reinvests herself in this band, not just for herself, not for fame or fortune or improving her social abilities, but for the band itself, her friends, for Nijika, and her dream. The second arc is a lot shorter and sweeter, and explores Kita's feelings of inadequacy in this group, as well as further growth from Hitori being forced to perform in front of a large crowd for the school's festival. This concert demonstrates Kita's tremendous musical growth by covering for Hitori when she has a major instrumental failure, and Hitori's ability to think on the fly and solve the issue on stage. Also, never forget, the cold open for the episode, and number 11 on the CD, is a warm, nostalgic track about high school that really hits me in the heart as someone almost a decade removed from that time in my life. I genuinely love this track, and If I Could Be a Constellation, the story track for the episode, is also great. I love the sound of Kesuka Band, and I'm not sure which is my favorite between this band and the next, but I promise whoever's in second is a very close second. Though this moment is really impressive for someone who started the show in a mango box, it's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back for Hitori. But the second arc is a great one for exploring Kita a bit more as a member. And then, I don't know, the show just kinda ends? If we wanted the show to end in a clean manner, we would end the series right after the festival performance. But it keeps rolling past that to show more gags in the music shop and Hitori getting her new guitar before season end. This finale isn't very final. So there's definitely more room for the story to continue past this point. Characters that were teased, traits left unexplored, to say nothing of the rest of the unadapted manga, Bocchi the Rock still has loads of story potential. The issue is, Cloverworks had no idea what they were getting into when they made this show. Fall of 2022 had some heavy hitters, with the likes of Chainsaw Man, a new Gundam, which I hear people are into, I wouldn't know, and the final season of Mob Psycho 100. In Cloverworks' own halls, they had Spy Family's second season printing money, so they weren't expecting Bocchi to be a heavy hitter. But she was, and the fans went crazy. Bocchi the Rock sold over 16,000 Blu-rays and DVDs in its first week of releases, which inside of Japan, these numbers are one of the best ways for us to determine success of a show. Compare that to the other shows in the season, and we have a case for Bocchi being the best performing anime of this year. Though, there are multiple caveats to using these metrics, I can't access all of them because I don't speak Japanese, so I can't say with any certainty if this is true. But the magazine The Manga was originally published in sold out. The manga itself sold out. The mangaka's merch sold out at Comic Con that year within 3 hours of opening. People started flooding the real-life location of Shelter for photos, prompting the crackdown on otaku tourism. Kesuka Band became the official ambassadors of Simo Kitazawa for that year's Kerry Festival, and much like K-On! Did in 2009, sales of the guitars and other musical instruments skyrocketed, with that particular models used by the members going out of stock entirely, which is impressive because Bocchi's using expensive and antique Black Beauty Gibson, whose reissues start at $6,900, although they did make a special edition Bocchi the Rock Gibson that goes for 128,000 yen, much more reasonable. Definitely not upset I don't have it. Yamada's basses are also cheaper, but that's not saying much. They're still like $1,000. It's a significant investment. Sorry about that. This is the sort of stuff that we can use to measure Bocchi's success. But that's a bit odd, right? The original merch includes some shirts, figurines, the CDs, obviously. In fact, Kesugaben has been releasing lots of music since the show's release, so if you like what you heard in the show, there's more. And pop-up shops. But if you're looking for more anime, the thing that actually drove these merchandise sales, you're out of luck. Later this year, the Bocchi movies will be released to English audiences, but these are just rehashes of the first season. The first movie reportedly has literally no new stuff in it at all, and it still crushed the box office in Japan for its first week. People are clamoring for more Bocchi, so where is it? While I'm sure all of this success has moved Bocchi up on Cloverworks' priority list, they unfortunately have their hands tied. They had many more animation projects already logged in their books, production schedules locked in, we can't just move things around, and that's to say nothing of the show's project leads. The lead animator Kedorira and series director Keiichiro Saito both went on to animate Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Keiichiro once again in a directing capacity. And I don't know if you know this, but Frieren is really good. Getting these guys back for Bocchi isn't going to be as easy now that they've helped make another season, if not year-defining anime, so Cloverworks is presently Bocchi-less. That's partially what these movies are here to solve. Keep people happy while we sit on our hands and wait for news of the inevitable. The hopefully inevitable. They would not release war, right? This leaves us in an interesting spot culturally. Bocchi fanned the smoldering embers of girl band anime into an inferno once again, and then disappeared without a trace. People want more, but they're gonna have to find it elsewhere. Which is where these other shows come in. Girls Band Cry and Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night are two girl band animes that were released within the same season. Despite their wildly contrasting art styles, they cover a lot of the same topics and ideas and have similar character archetypes, so people couldn't help but compare them. And while most ratings held Jellyfish as the better show during the year, now that the dust has settled, I'm not sure which was better. In the interest of fairness, it's important that you know that I was watching Jellyfish as it was coming out, and not Girls Band Cry. I was in this show's corner, and continued to be in its corner throughout the season. But it struggles in some areas that Girls Band Cry doesn't, so let's talk about these two properties, one at a time, and get into some of the ways they fill the space left by Bocchi, and further explore topics in the world of music. But first, let's return to K-On! To discuss its resident drama queens. Recall that Mio and her junior Azusa are both emotionally charged characters, and are POVs when things get serious. Yes, the show really didn't have any overarching plot or any sense of urgency, but individual episodes could have some pretty strong stakes when these two were the focus. These moments are useful because they deviate from our established norm, giving some much needed color to these individual episodes. But, while these dramatic asides are nice, they're not the main course. Even Bocchi the Rock, which was more willing to be dramatic and emotionally charged at times, is still a comedy. So we can't go all the way to drama, we gotta keep it light, keep things pleasant. For Girls Band Cry and Jellyfish though, we're leaning full into the promise of Mio by becoming a true drama. These shows are filled with self-reflection, arguments, self-realization, and actualization. Lots of crying, which, I mean, they better cry. With a name like this, I was told there would be crying. Earlier works have capitalized on this dramatic potential before, but the drama returns in 2024 to give us shows about girls fighting for their beliefs. And personally, I'm here for it. Think of this as the dark inversion of moe. If seeing cute girls being cute makes you want to protect them, seeing cute girls under duress surely would make you want to protect them more. Both of these shows seek to punch us in the gut with their characters, and writing is crucial to that success. If the story doesn't interest me, then I won't care about the crying girls, now will I? Both of these shows are very character-focused, so while it might not feel like I'm discussing plot, the plot is the growth and interaction of these characters. So, yeah, I promise you, even though I'm gonna be talking for the next, oh my god, while I'm gonna spend the next hour mostly doing character analysis, it's a character-driven story. The plot is the character growth, more so than any individual actions that happen. I'll touch on it, it's just not the focus of the show or this video. Also, it'll be impossible to talk about this without spoilers, so step off the train here if you don't want to be spoiled on anything. Chapters below if you want to skip around. I will be talking about episode 1 of these shows separately to start if you want to taste to see if you'd be interested, also marked in the chapters below. Finally, with all that out of the way, let's explore how Girls Band Cry achieves its promise of cute girls sobbin'. Girls Band Cry is the story of two girls and their struggle against reality, themselves, and each other on two opposing positions of the musical track. One idealistic and one jaded, and the other musicians they bring along for the ride. Let's start with our protagonist, the idealist. Nina Izeri is a high school girl from the country who's recently moved to Tokyo, or more accurately Kawasaki, which houses a vibrant music scene in real life. She experienced a lot of hardships that we won't get into just yet, but suffice to say her previous life was a hard one, and she's trying to find a better one in the city. She has a bit of a snag though. She got lost on the way to Kawasaki, therefore arriving too late to get her keys, and is thus homeless on her first day in town. It is through these circumstances that she meets Momoka Kawaragi, the realist. A 20-something- wait, she was born in 2002? 2002ers are in their 20s? Time, man, it keeps passing. A 20-something musician who recently left her previous group, Diamond Dust, despite its overwhelming success. Nina finds Momoka out on the street performing her most successful track, Void, and the two immediately hit it off. They get to know each other, Momo considers quitting music altogether, and almost does before Nina shouts her back to her senses, and they end the episode performing Void together. And I'm just gonna come out and say it. This show looks crazy. Right from the opener, Girls Band Cry is trying its best to blow your mind with its visuals. I think all of these shows' openers do a perfect job showing the distinct flavor of each group in their show. K-on's emphasizes cute and dumb fun. Bocchi shows wild visuals with a through line of Bocchi growing to appreciate the world now that she has friends. Jellyfish's focus on the past and how we've grown from it. And Girl Band Cry's eye-watering production value. Whereas most Japanese animation uses CGI as a cost-cutting measure, Girls Band Cry is built from the ground up with CGI in mind, and it shows. Great textures, great use of the camera and movement that's much harder to pull off in 2D, and of course, fluid motion. That fluid motion bit is the part that's going to be the most viscerally noticeable. I mentioned at the top of the video Chika's rotoscope dance from Love is War, and when I first saw that, I and my fiance went, ugh, because that's not the speed I or most anime watchers are used to characters moving in this medium, and it can take some getting used to. This is a known problem for video. Frame rates are really important for communicating the kind of media you're watching at a subconscious level, so changing the motion speed will put some people off. There are forums I found and research of people going, ugh, this looks like ass! So it's definitely an acquired taste. Speaking personally, I can't help but look at this and think about the history of animation in America, how 2D animation was completely replaced by 3D in the movie scene. So I see Girls Band Cry and go,
oh no.
I'm sure that won't happen, but it is an anxiety of mine. Anywho, this show has probably the highest production value of any show on this list, going through 5 years of production to produce this style, to say nothing of its content. K-On! Had 3 solid performances in its run. Bocchi has 5, 2 of which are in the finale. Girls Band Cry has a performance at every single odd-numbered episode, save for episode 9. And don't worry, episode 11 picks up the slack with 2! At every visual level, Toei Animations puts a lot of effort into Girls Band Cry, and by God it shows. From here, I'll be getting into stuff past episode 1, so this is your last warning for spoilers. Go watch it, it's great. Despite Nina's eventful first day, she came here to study for college, which is the catalyst for a lot of arguments as Momoka tries to pull her into the world of music. Within the first episode, Nina is characterized as a bit stubborn and suffering from poor executive function. Same girl. From this point onwards, we'll see that a little bit stubborn is a lot bit stubborn, as well as other complementary personality quirks such as temperamental to the point of self-destruction, immature, low emotional intelligence, impulsive. And all of this surrounds her stubbornness to make her one of the most prickly protagonists I've ever seen. Much like the animation, Nina herself is an acquired taste, but she's a good fit for the girl drama genre. She radiates drama. Contrasting all of that is Momoka, who has been through all of this once before with Diamond Dust and has somewhat fallen out of love with music. Don't get me wrong, she still loves playing and writing to herself, but something inside her stops her from fully committing. There is a war inside of Momo, and for a large portion of the show's run, she won't let anyone in. Nina sees her pain though and tries to get through to her. By God, they fight and fight over this, but Momo refuses to explain herself for most of the show. All we know is that it has something to do with Diamond Dust and how they changed, and that's that until episode 8. But for now, let's take a break from these drama queens to talk about the 3 other cast members. Subaru Awa is the cutie of the group, and comes from a more glamorous background as the granddaughter of a prominent actress. Despite this, she loves drumming, and is a much more strong-willed and competitive person than her appearance suggests, a fact that she uses to her advantage, sometimes using her preppy persona as a mask to influence others. She contrasts nicely with Nina in this way. Nina is very forward and honest to a fault, but Subaru is more willing to lie and manipulate her way to her goals, a skill she learned in order to survive in her grandmother's shadow. Subaru is named after the role that made her grandmother a successful actress, so that shadow is long. There is a lot of expectation built into Subaru for things she's never wanted. So she lives a double life, doing what her grandmother wants because she loves her and wants to make her happy, while stifling her own wants and needs. Though this eats away at her, this skill has made her proficient at switching her masks on the fly to get what she needs. This makes her unlikely friends with Nina, and though they definitely butt heads, hard not to with Nina, they respect each other's differences and know that the band is better for both of them being in it. These 3 make up the band for a while, until Subaru and Nina are approached by the final 2 members, Tobo Ebizuka and Rupa, no last name given. They were always in the background of the show, even from the first episode, and technically Subaru is too. But after the band's performance in episode 5, Tomo and Rupa finally come forward to join the group. Tomo is aloof and short, physically and socially, and is also prickly like Nina, but a different sort of prickly. Nina is argumentative and emotionally unregulated, but she can be agreeable if you catch her in a good mood. Tomo is stone cold, and only seems to come out of her shell for her roommate, Rupa. Rupa is very similar to Tsumugi from K-On!, a down-for-whatever sort who opts for group cohesion above all else, an emotional intelligence powerhouse to counter the complete lack of it from her bandmates. She is also shown to be exceptionally strong, and her wiki page says she's really intelligent too. She's kind of the whole package. I don't know why, but for some reason, all of these shows make their basis to the black sheep. She acts as an interpreter for Tomo, but is herself hard to read past that smile, not unlike Nijika, which, now that I think about it, Nijika might be Bocchi the Rock Tsumugi, actually. She has a habit of dropping cold truths with a smile, a good skill to have given all that she's suffered through. Speaking of suffering, each of these girls has been hurt by the whims of the world. I've already mentioned Subaru's double life. Tomo's mother was unfaithful to her father, and that rift in their family convinced Tomo to run away at a very young age. Even being in the city for a while, she's still the youngest member of the band at 16 years old. And Rupa, well, she's probably suffered the most of her friends, her family having died in a car crash while she was at work. Her shift went long, so she wasn't able to call them, a major regret in her life. Told you this show is dramatic. Like Nijika, Rupa tells Nina of this devastating moment in her life, evenly, kindly, through a smile. The two roommates are both hiding in shells. Rupa's is a smile, and Tomo's is a frown. Momo and Nina's suffering is much more central to the story, so let's get into the plot a bit beforehand. These five make up Togenashi Togeari, which is sometimes anglicized to prickly ant, but you'll never see them called that, so I won't either. The plot of the show is about them steadily rising through the music circuit, and is a pretty even-handed representation of the trials and tribulations bands face as they grow in notoriety. Oftentimes, Nina serves as the audience surrogate, with the more knowledgeable Subaru and Momoka explaining the production and logistics of small band living. Bocchi the Rock touches on this a bit as well, but it's not a priority compared to comedy and character growth. Here, realism very much is a priority, and no matter where the group is in their journey, the band does their best to keep Nina informed and manage expectations if she starts to get a swelled head. Throughout this rise to fame, though, is the mystery of Momoka, who goes out of her way to hide her feelings, and Nina's own traumas fuse with this to make a bitter cocktail of thrown drinks and lots of shouting. It's hard to know where to start with these two, because they really are fused characters. Their stories feed into each other like a loop, or perhaps a spiral. So let's start from the top with Nina, and see how far down the spiral goes, huh? Nina ran to Kawasaki to escape persecution and victimhood in a world that didn't understand her. She was bullied relentlessly by this cabal of girls in high school after Nina stuck her neck out for another classmate, trying to spare her from a similar fate. Soon after, the one friend Nina had told her she couldn't defend nor help her, and left her to weather the storm alone. Her family didn't understand how to help her either, and much like her former friend, kinda thought this was Nina's fault as well. Eventually, the school arranged for a meeting after a particular incident left Nina bloody. The school assumed no wrongdoing, called this particular offense an unrelated incident to whatever else may or may not have happened, and required Nina to shake her bully's hand. Kiss and make up. Everything about this moment is anathema to Nina. Nina doesn't start fights, scream, or throw drinks in people's faces for no reason. All of her bickering stems from a core character trait. Nina has an overwhelming sense of justice. She believes in doing what is right, even if everything is against her. And indeed, in this room, everything is. Her father isn't on her side. Her bullies obviously aren't. The school system doesn't care. There's not a single thing in this world that cares about what's right or wrong, save Diamond Dust. When Nina had no one, she had music, and Void was her fight song to stay fighting, despite the overwhelming opposition. Without it, in Nina's own words, she very well might have died. Thanks to that inspiration, she tore off for Kawasaki and found the song's creator in the streets. And though Nina was obviously inspired by her idol, Momoka found more inspiration in her. When she sang Void, Momo felt the raw emotion, the rage, her fighting spirit, and fell in love with her voice. This is why Momo pushes Nina into music. But after some initial success, and certainly after Tomo and Rupa join the group, she grows distant. This isn't Momoka's first time around the bend, remember? Diamond Dust was an out-of-the-blue rock outfit that really took the world by storm at first. And then the magic was gone. And in order to keep selling, they were asked to compromise more and more, until Momo didn't recognize herself anymore, and decided to tear out on her own. On the second turn around the spiral, Momoka can't help but think about that fall. Sure, things are good now, but eventually, people are going to get bored again. My music alone isn't enough to bring people to the table. Diamond Dust had to change because my music wasn't good enough. Diamond Dust changed because I failed them. So, she's afraid of herself, and yet is drawn to Nina, is drawn to watching her perform because Nina is Momoka from an older time when she was starting out and had no fear of the music industry or the fans. She loves Nina because of her raw energy, her overwhelming sense of justice, her idealism, her fearlessness. She reminds Momo of a time when it was just about the music, and she wants to hold that to her chest forever. All throughout the show, as the fame of Toge Toge rises, Momo becomes more and more cast out, culminating in episode 7, where Momo announces she's dropping out of the band after their next performance. Perhaps in response to that, Nina announces live that she's quitting school at that concert, dedicating everything she has to music. A move which angers Momo, but she still sees herself in, flashing back to when she made the exact same decision with Diamond Dust, further reinforcing her love-hate relationship with Nina. In episode 8, Momoka takes Nina to a DD concert and finally explains herself there, hoping that telling her this will make her understand Momo's hesitation. Issue is, Nina isn't a memory, but a person. A person who, without Momoka's music, wouldn't be in Kawasaki at all, or perhaps even alive. Nina doesn't want Momo to stop making music because the next Nina needs saving too. And if it isn't Momo, Nina doesn't want to do it. She lives because of that belief. And although Momo has lost the confidence to create, Nina is the reincarnation of that same passion. And she won't let Momo go. She won't let Momo stop. For all the Ninas out there who need Momo in their lives. This argument goes on a bit too long though, and Diamond Dust happens upon this lover's spat and brings their own beliefs on music to the table. Diamond Dust, and their new singer, who just so happens to be Nina's old friend from high school, so there's loads of antagonistic energy on them, yell out that they do not regret their decision. They will do everything they can to reach the top, to survive and show Momo that she was completely wrong to leave them, and that they can't wait to see her new band. Backed into a corner by Nina and Diamond Dust, Momoka recommits herself to the band and just f***ing balls as Nina declares her love for her. Pin it. This is what makes Toge Toge the group they are. Momo's music, with Nina's raw passions acting as the tip of the spear for girls burned by society. The world is a cruel place, and their music is a fight against that world for being so painful, idealistically hoping to make everything right with the power of rock. That's all visible right from the opener as well. Wrong World shows images of drowning, being forced to follow a script, and escaping that pressure to live your best, truest existence. This rebellion comes to a head in episode 11 at the music festival they've been prepping for 5 episodes, their first fight against Diamond Dust. In Nina's mind at least. In reality, they're on the main stage and Toge Toge are side stage, so it's really no comparison, but their newest song, Emptiness and Catharsis, is the hardest the show goes for a performance, which is really saying something, and serves as the second climax of Season 1. The entire song plays with interspersed flashbacks of all of the pain the members have gone through, all of their frustration and hatred towards suffering itself channeled into this performance. And it's a great show! Even if they're on different stages, that doesn't matter. Reality doesn't matter, because Toge Toge is gonna tear it down, destroy suffering, and replace it with a new, better reality. We live in the wrong world, and we'll build a new one right here. But the bitter truth is that reality can't be destroyed by will alone. The last 2 episodes see the band sign with a label, receive a formal invitation to battle with Diamond Dust, the release of their newest single, In Reality, Cold, Hard Reality. Nina wants to accept Dee Dee's terms, seeing the battle in her romantic way. A true battle of the bands on the same stage? This is what we were always aiming for! But the others are more reasonable. Subaru is more industry-focused. Diamond Dust has a fan base many magnitudes bigger than theirs, and in a game of ticket sales, they're automatically gonna win that fight. And Rupa approaches from the artist's side. Just because you make a better song doesn't mean you'll do better. A significant part of success is luck. If it were easy, everyone would be successful. Everyone tries to walk Nina back off the ledge on this, and throughout, Momoka is with them, but also not. It's important to note that while Momo finally came clean about her doubts and fears 4 episodes earlier, that doesn't mean she's cured. She still struggles, all the time, and in the label's sound studio, you can see her struggling under the constraints of time and money. That is something I loved seeing in Momoka. Her doubts never go away. She's improving, sure, but no one is cured by one lover's spat and a big sob. As these things always go, Nina manages to convince Momoka to accept the battle, but it soon becomes clear that they aren't going to succeed. Reality comes knocking. Pop is popular, it's in the name, and Diamond Dust, a rock-turned-idol group, is crushing them. Momoka, once again, sees this as a failure of her music. It is at this moment that the new lead of Diamond Dust, Nina's old friend Hina, comes to help Toge out, but not before gloating. If both of our groups play both days, then your crowd will grow as well, and nobody will be the wiser to your failure. Just admit that I'm right. I was right then, and I'm right now, and I'll let it slide. Nina obviously doesn't accept, and passionately argues with her bandmates against this choice. And here lies the strongest visual for the group's dynamic. Everybody loves the energy Nina brings to music, but she brings that energy constantly, in everything she does. And it can be exhausting to others, but not to Momoka. Look at the inspiration in her eyes. So, they refused the deal, and played to a diminished crowd on principle, leaving their music label in the process. There is something to be said about Diamond Dust's role in all of this. Though they could be called the villains of this story, I've already made my case that the true antagonist of Girls Band Cry is reality itself. Diamond Dust bends to reality's wishes in order to be successful, but recall that DD was originally a rock outfit with Momoka. And Nina, all told, is a pretty selfish person, but in the final minutes of Girls Band Cry, she finally comes to the realization that others can find power and meaning in her music too. Momo didn't just save Nina, she saved countless people, in countless ways. And at this moment, Nina recalls that Hina found strength in Diamond Dust back then too. Diamond Dust and Hina take on the roles of antagonist intentionally to spur Toge to be their best anti-establishment selves. They are compromising to succeed, but nobody wants to compromise on their vision if they don't have to. DD spurs them on because they care about Momoka, and they want her to be happy too. They hope there's a place for that reality, somewhere in the world. Nina now sings not just for the next Nina, but for everyone. Rock is the music of rebels, and though they can't destroy reality, they can carve a place for themselves within it. They can't change everything, but they can change some of it. They can make the world better for those they reach, and that's good enough. Girls Band Cry intentionally ends on a lower note than the promise of episode 11, and it's better for it. It endeavors to constantly show honest depictions of what it means to make music, and failure is a part of that. This show is a fantastic visual spectacle, and if you have the stomach for strong melodrama, then you should absolutely give this a go. But I think the reason why the show didn't perform so strongly compared to Jellyfish was because of its release. It wasn't well advertised, and for a summer show, it only released on English platforms in August, 2 months out of step, and on some really odd platforms at that. It was released on Prime Video and Fandango, as well as the Microsoft Store, and Hoopla, essentially a library streaming service I literally didn't know was a thing before this. Apparently you can get a subscription for free if you have a library card, so I don't know, get in there if you have one. None of the standard anime libraries like High Dive or Crunchyroll though. It's a bad release for an English audience, and that visibility definitely affected its performance, which is a shame because I really believe in this show. This is most likely the show you've missed from this lineup, so please give it a watch if you can. It's got some great legs, and with that ending, there could be more in the future. Who knows? Now, to our final show on the list, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. Jellyfish was very strong throughout its run, and was my favorite for beating out Girls Band Cry for Best Girl Bandame of the season, but it does have its issues. You see, Girls Band Cry's ambition lies mostly in its visuals. It's trying something fantastical with its art, and the story is very solid, but it is by design a very grounded story, exploring, or perhaps exposing, the joys and bitter truths of the music industry. And that is, by its nature, normal? Certainly not fantastical. Perhaps that's why these girls are so over the top and the visuals are crazy. These moments keep you engaged while it teaches you something about the underpinnings of the creative process. Jellyfish is more ambitious with its storytelling. It makes some pretty big swings, and not all of them end up connecting, which is why this show isn't perfect, but is still thinking about some really interesting subjects and has me thinking about it, despite finishing it months ago. The first 4 episodes of the show set up each of the main characters and their issues, Mahiru, Kano, Mei, and Kiwi, as they go through the transitional period of adolescence and dealing with the mess of it all through art. Each of these girls has, let's call it a ghost of themselves, which haunts them in some way, and their current anxieties, regrets, or motivations can be found in how they've changed from the person they were into something barely recognizable. Think of it as a loss of innocence, where each of them was hurt by the world in some way, and has morphed into this new form to survive. Now, Kano recruits all of them to create something together, and reconcile with their old selves in the process. We start with Mahiru and Kano in the first episode, with Mahiru doing typical high school girl stuff. that she is haunted by her childhood of illustrating. She drew, she painted, and she was very good at it, but her friends said her art was weird and it changed her. She felt shame for what she has made, and has since stopped creating. She sometimes visits the mural she made in Shibuya where the story takes place, and this time some wannabe idol is performing in front of the mural, covering it with her posters, further erasing Mahiru's past. Kano is in the crowd and defends Mahiru's art when she wouldn't, prompting Mahiru to follow her. Actually, these two have had multiple near misses up until this point, because fate is just funny like that. While Mahiru was talking to my fave and considering Halloween costumes earlier that day, Kano grabbed the devil costume when Mahiru was reaching for it. At that moment, Mahiru was considering being a bit braver, but instead opted for the angel costume, in line with her current thought process on being a normal high school girl, a typical member of society. Actually, let's dig more into this. One of the core competencies of Jellyfish's animation, done by Dogakoba by the way, is the wealth of visual metaphor they throw in there. In the first episode alone, we have the reoccurring angel devil motif throughout the episode, starting here at 21 seconds in, Mahiru's ghost representing her regret, flashes of the train passing by representing opportunity passing by, Kano and Mahiru's hands on the rail, their budding connection before they fall apart. Kano wearing the devil outfit as Mahiru wears the angel, Kano tempting Mahiru with the promise of a different life, a weird life. Kano being Mahiru's devilish temptress. The jellyfish socks representing this repressed desire inside Mahiru to be an artist, to be different, which Kano says she loves. Mahiru using her lipstick, shown at the beginning of the episode as a representation of the normalcy Mahiru is chasing, destroying it by using it to draw a jellyfish! The density of metaphor in Jellyfish, visual or textual, is unrivaled among its peers. Girls Band Cry looks fantastic in its way, but Jellyfish looks great while communicating loads of subtext with each passing frame. Yet another visual metaphor is how Mahiru's imagination is often represented by technology. DVD pausing on her hypothetical adulthood, VCR rewind on her imagined outburst, her memories reeling behind her on film as she considers what to do. This show has a fascination with the language of technology, and specifically the internet throughout. It has shots in portrait, multiple conflicts that revolve around online life and the dangers of it, jokes that require at least some knowledge of internet culture to grok, including how each of these artists have internet handles, and depending on which one is used, communicates something about the relationship between the speaker and the subject. Again, this is a dense show, with lots of visual metaphors, textual metaphors. It's trying a lot of things, and I had to take physical notes to catch some of this stuff. It's nutty. Anyway, back to episode 1. Mahiru stalks Kano after she defends her mural, and they connect through Mahiru's old art under the handle Yoru Umitsuki. Kano has been a fan of Yoru for years and tells Mahiru of her new ambition, to be a masked singer under the pseudonym Jelly, and using Yoru's art for Jelly would rule! But Mahiru runs away, too meek and set in her ordinary girl ways to dive into this opportunity, taking the train of opportunity away from Kano. But a chance encounter on Halloween brings the two together again, and Mahiru is inspired to try for Kano's sake, saying, "You know, jellyfish can't swim or shine on their own, but maybe if I'm around you, maybe I'll be able to shine too?" Mahiru taught herself long ago to stop trying to be different. Being a normal girl is what's right for her, but it hasn't made her happy. So maybe, in following Kano's lead, she'll be able to create again. She'll be happy again. Speaking of Kano Yamanouchi is a former idol, a beautiful young woman who's talented in singing and writing, a natural fit for her old work as an idol for the Sunflower Dolls under the name Nonaka Tachibana. But a scandal buried her, and has since been trying to get Jelly off the ground as a sort of revenge through positivity thing. If people love Jelly, then they'll love me by proxy. I'll prove that I'm worth something. Kano is very similar to Momoko in her motivations, and like Momo, the entirety of Jellyfish will be spent digging into the intricacies of her character. But this is Kano at the start, a beacon of energy to her collaborators, the visionary behind the project, the light that allows the jellyfish to shine. That's episode 1. Past this point, spoilers be damned. Jellyfish is different from every other show previously explored in its instrumentation. The prior bands have the standard drums, bass, guitar, vocals, with perhaps a rhythm guitar. Jellyfish is a singer, an illustrator, a composer, and what I would argue is a producer. Kano can sing and she loves writing lyrics, but she needs someone else to make the tracks. For that, she turns to Mei Takanashi, a super fan of Kano's from her Nonaka days. Mei is a piano prodigy who started at 5 years old and goes to a private school specifically for music. Mei is one of the best, but was very meek, an easy target for those envious of her abilities. During this tumultuous period of her life, she met Nonaka on a whim at a fan meetup, making up her pseudonym Kimura when asked her name. But Kano was really honest with Mei, saying she also had no friends and promised to never give in to anyone envious of her talent, which struck a chord with Mei. And from that, a superfan was born. Mei's hold on reality, like Bocchi's, is tenuous. She is prone to bouts of obsession, making mountains out of molehills, and misunderstands situations constantly. She is, her words not mine, not very smart, and is still terrible with people, just in an enthusiastic and creepy way rather than an introverted way. Though this version of her has her issues, it's clear that her life is better thanks to Nonaka's influence. Under Kano's influence, though, Mei learns to bring her head a bit closer to earth and sees Kano less as an object of worship and more as a person and friend. Mei also relays this lesson to another superfan of a different idol, showing how, yes, Mei is definitely a bit too into this, but having idols to stand can give you the strength to march on, to be confident, to be yourself. And by the end of the tale, Kimura becomes a fan to others, perpetuating a cycle of inspiring people and encouraging them to be their authentic selves. Also, because of her background as a no-no stan, she has encyclopedic recall of any public information regarding Kano and her backstory, which we'll get back to in a bit. The final member of this group is one of two reasons why this video exists, so bear with me as I try to contain my enthusiasm. Kiwi Watase is a VTuber, video editor, sound mixer, and overall producer of the group's ideas, and lifelong friend of Mahiru. All of the disparate parts of the music and videos go through her, as she's the one making the music videos, and she's often adding extra tracks than just the piano that Mei's supplying, so she really is the producer of this group. She's multi-talented, and thanks to having experience in video and sound editing in the past, is aware of what ideas are actually possible or completely fantastical, helping to bring Kano down to earth. She's the most pragmatic of Jelly's contributors, though this does not mean she's any more mentally well than the others. Kiwi used to be a big shot in her youth, extremely confident in herself and believing that she could do anything, and at the time that really did seem the case. Kiwi was good at seemingly everything from the moment she tried it, as we can see from her old artwork in episode 11. Classic gifted kid archetype. They're bright and get ahead early, but unfortunately reality will catch up to them someday, and at that point, there's a choice to make. Do you learn to be normal? Do you try even harder to maintain your lead? Or do you crack under the pressure? This is most definitely not an experience I am intimately familiar with. As Kiwi entered middle school, her previous joys and fascinations were no longer considered normal for her to like, and was ostracized by everyone around her. The kids didn't interact with her, the teachers weren't there to support her differences, and as a result, she fell out of the school system. That event was traumatizing for Kiwi, and that bravado she had as a child took on a new form. Mahiru wasn't having the easiest time at her school either, and rather than commiserate with Mahiru on their mutual failure to fit in, Kiwi lied. Said school was doing great. She was even on her way to becoming student council president. Kiwi started creating a version of herself that still held on to that confidence from her childhood. She developed a VTuber persona, Nox Ryogasaki, who embodied the childish confidence Kiwi still wants, and it grows, takes on new significance. Nox is where Kiwi is more comfortable. This is the skin she chooses to wear. The one she was born with, however, is weighing on her psyche. Kiwi's not some little girl now, and puberty has caused her to change in ways she doesn't like. Men lust over her. No one sees the confidence Kiwi wants them to see. They see this mousy girl with... there's no clean way to put it, you know what I mean. And she hates them for that. She has lost what made her confident as a child, so now Kiwi, the physical being, is anything but confident. This separation defines who Kiwi is, because she wants to be strong, tough, and confident, but she isn't anymore. The world has worn her down to the point that going outside terrifies her, but you wouldn't know that talking to her over the phone. She has enough confidence online to lie, but can't maintain it the moment Mahiru asks in person. She'll rave and have the energy to scream across the screen, but is meek and frightened whenever they're in public. Getting Kiwi out of her house is a common hurdle the other members must clear when working together. An easy hurdle, because Kiwi hates being a burden to the others, but is something the others are aware of, which goes to show how good friends they are. How they're all working to keep Kiwi comfortable. Support systems. They do wonders for your recovery. Kiwi often suffers in silence throughout the show, choosing to bury her feelings only for them to come out violently when she doesn't intend. She reminded me a lot of Rika from Wonder Egg Priority in that way. This is a character with a lot of mental issues, and she's often her own worst enemy as a result, but it's a dense and thoughtful depiction that you can tell the writers cared about. A lot of thought went into making these characters, and it shows. All of this speaks of a character living two lives, more confident in her virtual world, using her other self to survive in a world that moved on without her, but that's not the full story. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Kiwi's story has a lot of trans themes to it. Puberty's changes make Kiwi extremely body dysmorphic, as man leering over them causes them extreme pain. Kiwi says this beats getting hit on at least when meeting Kano and Mei for the first time, and their most negative reactions always come from people ogling their chest. When introduced, the first name we hear is Nox, before Mahiru says Kiwi. And similarly, we see Nox in the opener just a couple of frames before Kiwi. In episode 7, Kiwi makes friends with Koharu, a fashionable and beautiful older woman who has had extensive plastic work done to look how she wants to. And in a story with this much intentional subtext, I don't think that's an accident. In episode 11, where all these themes come to a head, some of her old friends accuse them of being trans, before Kiwi clarifies that they never changed, at least not emotionally. Kiwi's body changed, and everyone treated them differently as a result. Their interests weren't cool, so everyone ignored the person, but they sure did like looking at their body. Kiwi didn't matter, but the physical form, the object, does. So, Kiwi curated Nox and the lies to fabricate a new persona, one that they could actually love online. The episode ends with Kiwi saying "Goodbye Sakai," her sign-off for Nox, usually signaling transition from the virtual Nox to the physical Kiwi, but this time saying it as Kiwi. And for the rest of the show, this person is not referred to as Kiwi. Mahiru refers to them as a girl and a boy in the following scene. They say, "That's my name," when Nox appears on the screen in the final episode. This is all pretty undeniable, I think. This is a trans story, but not the standard one we've been taught to think about when we imagine trans people. Not trans since a small child, not a child wearing their parents' clothes. This is a character whose dysmorphia and societal ostracization, paired with their otaku interests, pushes them to produce a masculine online persona with which they feel comfortable. A very internet-centric form of transness in keeping with Jellyfish's internet culture focus. Reminds me a lot of the interviews People Make Games conducted inside of VR chat on similar subjects, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that video, you should. As well as Identity, Gender, and VR Chat by Straz Films, which is more comprehensive on the same subject. It's a great story, and though I'm certain the trans themes were intentional, I think the show's focus on empathy allows you to come to terms with Nox's situation before all of the pieces fall into place. It's not a trans story, it's a human one. From my position, I think this is a great portrayal, exploring Kiwi Nox's identity from an emotional perspective. And it made me love them even more than I thought I could. I was in their corner from the start. Look at their snaggletooth, what's not to love about that? Discovering that they were probably the most complex portrayal on how to manage pain in the show, what a bonus. Let's talk more about Mahiru and Kano and how they develop over the story. Soon after Jelly's first video, comments point out Mahiru's lack of practice in her medium, and it sends her on a spiral. She becomes protective of the Jelly character and extremely envious of other artists who would dare draw Jelly. She tries to leave the project, noting how, compared to the others in their prior accomplishments, Mahiru is just a normal girl. This is a classic case of imposter syndrome. Notice how Mahiru's prior accomplishments in art, the recognition of Jelly, or the goddamn mural don't come to mind in this moment. A recurring theme in all of these shows, you'll note. All the bad, none of the good. She doesn't like who she is, and that extends to her art. Kano counters with her typical shiny optimism, but that doesn't stop Mahiru from having these thoughts. For the rest of the show, Mahiru will struggle to improve so that she actually likes the work she makes. And this effort pushes her even further than Jelly, to take on further projects that ask more of her talents, which puts her in direct conflict with Kano. Kano's experience as Nonaka is purely thanks to her mother, Yukine Hayakawa. Yukine is a producer whose dream is to raise up an artist who draws a crowd of 50,000 people, the size of Tokyo Dome. Kano becomes a tool towards that goal for Yukine, and I really do mean tool. Yukine played into Nonaka's desires and asked her to do everything she could for her sake, for her dream, going so far as to say, "If you're lost as to what you're singing for, won't you sing for my sake?" This framing is one that Kano uses throughout the show. What is it that drives her to do this? What is she singing for? And chronologically, this is the first time that comes up. Yukine's framing suggests not a what to sing for, but a who. Singing as an instrument for someone else's desires or love. And in this case, her desires. Her love. So Kano does so, considering herself an instrument for Yukine's passions. After the scandal, though, Kano was left with nothing. She was always singing for someone, and now that that person is left, why am I here? Who else should I sing for? When we meet Kano in episode 1, her reason is a bit revenge-fueled. I sing to get back at the haters. But this reason doesn't hold water, and she soon finds herself listless again. Then there's some stuff that I'm skipping over. I'm pinning it. It's my last pin, I promise. Kano decides to sing for Mahiru instead, as Mahiru is drawing for Kano, right? Things are going well until this greater project of Mahiru's comes knocking straight from Yukine herself. Just because Yukine is no longer involved in Kano's life doesn't mean she's lost sight of her goal. She sees something in Mahiru's art and tries to bring her onto her newest project. Kano's reaction to hearing about this opportunity makes it clear that Yukine is a bewitching figure. She suspects from the moment she hears about their meeting that she's already lost Mahiru. And she's right. Mahiru hates her art, and Yukine's critical eye is just what she needs to grow right now. And yet, we can see from their meeting that Yukine is a wolf in sheep's clothing. She never references the humanity of these girls, as evidenced by using their work pseudonyms exclusively. Mahiru is Yoru in these conversations. And the one time Mahiru brings up Kano by name, Yukine speaks over her, saying, "Ah, Yumi Nonoka." All of these people are tools towards Yukine's goal, making sure to remind us that this is a deal with the devil, even if Mahiru needs this push. Yukine abused Kano, never regarding her as a person, and as a consequence, Kano still considers herself a tool, Mahiru's tool, even if Mahiru doesn't think the way Yukine does. Because of this, Kano considers Mahiru's new project a deep betrayal. She decided to sing for Mahiru, and now she's leaving her too! In this painful moment, Kano says something she really shouldn't. That Mahiru would never have drawn without her influence. That Mahiru is a weak person without the strength of others. That she's a jellyfish that can't swim. And Mahiru's pain is plainly visible. She's never been a particularly strong character. She has lots of self-doubts, and it's true. It's thanks to Kano's influence that this deal with Yukine was possible. As she is fond of saying, a jellyfish can't shine on their own, so all of this is thanks to Kano. Mahiru thought this was her next step in shining on her own, as thanks for Kano's gift, and Kano shatters her for it. This final line represents Mahiru's self-doubts manifest, and until the finale, they don't speak to each other again. We are then treated to a flashback montage of all the times Kano said Yaru's name, of the friendship she destroyed, flashing to their trip to the beach, to the aquarium, to all the times she said she loved Yaru's work, to the whisper in the ear, to the kiss, and yeah, it's time to get around to all these pins. Let's talk about the kiss. Can I talk to you about the kiss? Please, guys, I've been dying to talk to you about the kiss all day. All the way back in K-On!, we had a character with a bit of a sapphic interest in her bandmates, in Tsumugi. And I didn't remember this while writing, but Mio does as well. It's playful, it happens twice or thrice in the first season, and that's kind of the beginning of the end of it. But every single anime on this list has some sapphic characters or tendencies to it, and that is a curious thing. If you want to have any sort of romance in your all-female cast, you're gonna get some lesbians, so that makes sense, but each show gets a bit more serious about their presentation as we move forward. From Tsumugi to Kita, who loves the cool, collected nature of Ryo, it's played for jokes, but none of these jokes are like punching down on queer people. Even Tsumugi all the way back in 2009 isn't a mean portrayal, though I don't think Mugi was intended to be a lesbian, personally. They're both jokes about the puppy dog sort of love or interest in love kids tend to have, and that's fine enough. But as we shift from comedy to drama, this sapphic energy shifts as well. There are multiple plausibly deniable moments throughout Girls Band Cry, which is where a lot of these shows operate. It begins in episode 4 when Momo and Nina suspect that Subaru might have boyfriend trouble. And then it just moves on. And while this is clearly a joke, it's also pulling double duty of not letting us know Momoka's position on, well, men. Rupa and Tomo live together because Tomo was a minor and couldn't live in the city by herself when she first got here, but there are also moments where they hold each other in moments of sadness. And this could definitely be a moment of comfort, but also, yeah. The only real definitive moment of a lesbian being lesbian is the big number 8, where the final words out of Nina's mouth in the episode are, "No matter what, I love you." Immediately followed by looking to the camera and more directly saying, "I'm confessing my love." And in the final episode, Nina says she loves this city where she can laugh and cry with her friends, and Momoka says, "Kawasaki, right?" Which may be a reference to Nina thinking this was Tokyo when she first arrived, but it could also be her saying, just making this perfectly clear, "You're saying you love the city, right?" Because she's already told Momo she loves her once, not just love, but like serious love. Can we really be sure she's talking about Kawasaki here? It's not like we're gonna see any of these characters smooch or anything, that's not the Japanese style. But there are loads of light Yuri touches throughout Girls Band Cry for your sapphic enjoyment if you, like Mugi, enjoy seeing your lovers bicker and fight. And of course, are girls. Oh my god, they were roommates? But it's pretty quiet, all told. You can easily overlook this stuff or ignore it if your heart is cold and dead, but there's no ignoring the sapphic imagery in Jellyfish. Again, we're never going to see these two fully macking, but this is pretty f***ing forward for Japanese sensibilities. And given Kano's reactions, she seems kind of swept up in the moment herself. After this, when Koharu is talking about her boobs, please don't ask, Kano is extremely interested, and also does her own thinking about Nox's boobs later, though not in a sexual way, I suppose. How about all of the romantic interactions these two get up to? Kano takes Mahiru to the beach where they say they'll make art for each other, the aquarium, a well-documented staple of romances, the whisper in episode 1. It's really intimate, isn't it? If you're wearing headphones, that whisper is right to your ear, showing the closeness Kano already feels towards Mahiru. Plus all the times Kano uses daisuki towards Mahiru, which is ambiguous by definition, it's somewhere between like and love, but is definitely a show of great affection. Though she does use aishiteru at least once, which is like top shelf maximal love word. Apparently some Japanese people go their whole lives never saying this word. Plus, she's saying it in a humorous scene, and young kids tend to use stronger language than their elders anyway, but hey, do you see Kano jokingly use aishiteru with anyone else? Didn't think so. Plus, other odd nods to Kano's queer status like, wait, was that a fridging joke? Kano, like Nina, is definitely queer, but like Nox's trans characteristics, it's a subtle representation. And let's not forget that Mei is also in love with Kano. There is too much evidence for at least one side of this pair to suggest that it wasn't intended by the author, but some people still argued against it. I remember seeing people online arguing, this isn't a Yuri story, people are chasing ghosts, trying to make this into something it's not. And I'm here to tell you that this is girl band anime. Yuri comes with the territory. All this to say that this moment of betrayal and hurt in episode 9 is heartbreak. Nothing more dramatic than a soul-crushing breakup, no? Mahiru leaves the project and continues to sharpen herself against Yukine's demands, and Kano just crumbles. The next 3 episodes explore Kano once again looking for a reason to sing, as well as finally realizing that though she said she was singing for revenge or for Mahiru, she was always singing to get her mother's attention, but she never saw Kano, just Mahiru. Mei and Kiwi see further development over this time, which I've already talked about, but the strong pace of the show up until this point kinda wanes. Episode 12 is a time skip to the day of the performance Mahiru was commissioned for, and Jelly gets to perform at it thanks to Mahiru's negotiations. By this point, Kano and Nox have been doxxed as members of Jelly, each with their own harassment campaigns, so Kano's really in her head here. But Mahiru, and a character I've never mentioned, come to her rescue, showing in digital form the aquarium Kano promised to open in Shibuya for Mahiru, out of Mahiru's art. In the end, it was Mahiru who made an aquarium for Kano. She sings, Mahiru and Kano make up for the horrible things they said, and Yukine puts Kano's full name, with her last name, as recognition of the actual human that Kano is, and Kano sobs. The show ends with the mural being repainted with more jellyfish, and running off as the side characters all wave to the camera. It's the most final send-off you could make, even more than Girls Band Cry did. I said earlier that Jellyfish kind of wanes after episode 9, and I think it's because this ending, it doesn't feel earned to me. I think if the show had 13 episodes, we could have reached this point, but for this genuine heartbreak and pain between these two to be resolved 2.5 episodes later, it feels like the studio ran out of time and needed to wrap it up. It's unfortunate, but still a really, really solid show. There are further themes and ideas that I haven't even remotely touched on in this video, such as the entirety of Nonaka's scandal. This show is just doing so much, and I think it spread itself too thin as a result. But it's still absolutely worth your time, and there are further depths to explore if you want to give it a watch yourself. Comparing these two now, it's hard for me to say which is better. It's like comparing a metaphorical apple to a rotating 3D orange. They have completely different goals and styles, so I don't think you can really say one is better than the other. But I will say that Girls Band Cry has a very grounded story and delivers on that. Jellyfish opted for something a bit more ambitious and didn't quite stick the landing. Is it better to land all your shots or fail while reaching for the stars? That's up to you to decide. What I can say about both of them, and Bocchi the Rock while we're at it, is that these shows have excellent characters in them. Bands, fundamentally, are small groups of people who spend almost all of their time together. Whether happy, sad, or angry, traumatized, funny, or melodramatic, these are your people, and it is through them that we grow and improve. The music is the thing that brought me to the table, but it's the characters and their journey that has me thinking about these shows for years afterward. In each of these stories, we have very realistic depictions of people going through difficult times, and they never fully improve. Hitori is improving and failing, but is still trying, and in the manga has made even further fantastic strides, but still improving. Momoka has massive self-doubt and pushes through, but still falters. Nina, in the final minutes of the final episode, is still learning about her old friends and learning to be a bit more selfless. QEnox's struggle with themselves is so real, and they're still trying to figure out who they are, as we all are at that age. And Kano has been treated like an object her whole life, and even in the final episode is shattered by her mother's one moment where she acknowledged Kano's humanity. Her approval is still so important, even after all she's done. The characters feel real, their interactions are complex, and I get the sense that even as some of these shows have some room to grow and some are definitively over, these people really could exist. And further than that, each story is about connecting people through music. Life is hard. Life is traumatizing. It's also joyous and exciting, and music is an outlet for all of that, for frustration, for change, for joy, and it shows that the artists who make music and the people who listen really aren't that different. K-On! Shows how we could all be musicians. If these dorks can, why can't you? And if you find yourself in any of these characters, if their music speaks to you, then your music could speak to others. Musicians are people, turning their experiences into music. And through that music, we can become better people. We can create for each other and the ones we love. We can change the world. Or just have some fun. So, what do you want to do? I'm Superdude. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of this gargantuan video about girl band anime. I hope it was a good time, enlightening, interesting. It's autumn in the northern hemisphere, which means it's pie season again, so here is an apple pie as thanks for making it this far. It's got cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, added some brown sugar to the top. Oh, and if you're gluten intolerant, don't worry, it's a digital pie. Just let me know when it downloads and let me know how it tastes. From watching all these anime to getting to this point in editing, I've been working on this for many months, and I have to thank Savannah Crawford for her help in editing the script. It was over 25 pages long, gang. I simply could not keep the script straight in my head, so her contribution was invaluable. And I encourage you to check out her Instagram. She makes woodblock prints for a living, and they are crazy intricate and beautiful, so you should give them a look and support her in whatever way you can. Past that, I must also thank my patrons for their patience as I essentially disappeared into the mines to toil for a couple of months there. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, see exclusive videos or the YouTube stuff early, consider becoming a patron where your contribution helps me give back to the process. For example, I have new, faster internet now thanks to the people whose names are currently rolling across the screen, so now I don't have to drive to a public cafe an hour away to download or upload videos. Your contribution makes a meaningful difference to my life and I cannot thank you enough. And that is it! Feel free to recommend other girl band animes or just general music animes in the comments so I can compile the list of further shows to watch. I love music, I love good art, and, though it feels weird to say, I do be enjoying cute girls doing cute things, so please let me know your favorites. With all that out of the way, remember to take care of yourself. You did just watch a 93-minute video, potentially one sitting. Make sure to go drink some water and do a good stretch, okay? I'm Superdude. Thanks for watching.